Because what surprised me a lot is how incredibly well-tuned they are into the experiences we have had with React. They explicitly talk about the problems of state management. Okay, hello. Time for another Ko-fi update. First thing, my last video, I was talking about the cost of open source. And I completely missed the amount because I said 300 euros. I'd spent missed work for 300 euros. It was 3,000 euros. And that's a lot of money. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I was also talking about how well I've been feeling related to sleep and stuff. Well, that changed this week. I'm not sure why. At least I'm in debugging mode, so I have some theories. We had to change time, like the clock. We had to adjust the clock on Sunday, 1 hour ahead, which is this stupid rule we have. I don't know where it comes from, but it's like state management. It's like you're manually trying to optimize something. Well, it doesn't really work out. It just breaks everything. But yeah, so I think it's partly because of that. And what happens is that I can't fall asleep. That's the biggest problem. But I have this, and it affects my girlfriend because then I try to go to sleep, but then I get up from bed and then she wakes up and then she has a shitty morning and then I sleep too late. Yeah, it doesn't really work out. So I have to fix this. It's not a huge problem, but it's there has to be some way to have this routine of just go to sleep at the same time, have a good night's sleep, feel productive and awake during the day. But I have this other theory as well, and I've been looking into this thing called Flutter, which is a project from Google, and I'm actually going to show you some of this stuff and tell you why I think I've been losing sleep over this because I've been kind of excited about this. But before we do that, I thought we could do I just released Overmind, the newest release with the new dev tools. So what I thought we could do together is actually tweet about it. And I've actually prepared a tweet as well. So there's a new release. It's called the DevTools release. And basically it's a lot of new features in the DevTools. And I just recorded a video showing off the DevTools. And then I did a mistake. I pasted the wrong URL on the website. So I had to create a whole new release just to fix the URL on the video on the website. So annoying. But what's also been going on here is the functional approach, the practice, how you organize and write out your functional code has been reworked. So it works even better with typing and stuff. And then of course there are some bug fixes. And then I pasted the video here. So maybe we can just tweet that now. Tweet. Sweet. And then we have to jump to Twitter to see if everything looks good. I'm using this twist. I don't remember. Twisty or something. Twisty, yes, from Kitze. It's really nice. It makes me do personal messaging on Twitter instead of going mad over these notifications. So let's see. Oh, I got some. I can look at that later. Let's see. Home. How does it look? Let me go to my profile. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, it looks good. Release, blah, blah, blah. We got the video there. Okay, we have to press like. That's important. And then I usually take that tweet and I paste it into new release out, post it on the forum, and let's also go to, there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm trying to move people, choose channel, general. I try to move people over to this one. So instead of pasting the tweet, I'm pasting the spectrum thing, and then they have to go to the tweet. Kind of silly, but okay. Yes. Cool. Anyways, so that's Overmind release. Thanks for joining me on that. Let's have a look at this Flutter thing. Okay, so what does Flutter do? Flutter is like you write one code base and you can deploy it on iOS and Android. And you might say, as a React developer, why don't you use React Native? I've tried it once. I don't like the developer experience. Like, I like the way you write the code. You can reuse JavaScript packages and everything. I would prefer using React Native, but like just setting it up, the flow of developing, like the hot reloading and all that stuff, it's not really working out. And I think the current version of React Native is more of a proof of concept. It's not like they had to build that and release it to gain some experience on how it really should work. And I know they are working on a brand new architecture for it, but currently the consensus seems to be that Flutter is more well thought through. Well, I shouldn't say that. Flutter is just more mature. And another thing is that it actually runs native code. It's not like a JavaScript bridge thing. It actually compiles down to the actual language, or like how do you say compile? Yeah, like to machine code. Can you say that? Something like that. So it runs a lot smoother, and you actually get more stuff in there, like off the bat. So let me just show you this stuff. Okay, so fast development, we can go through. Okay, so first of all, I was really surprised how easy it was to set up. It seemed a little bit scary in the beginning because you have to install a bit of stuff, but the documentation is just insane. Like, this is the best documentation I've ever seen on a project. And they also, like the CLI tool, the Flutter CLI tool, just gives you all the information about what you're missing, what you should do. It's amazing, the work they've done there. And the hot reloading, I'll show it to you. But like, you start everything from VS Code, and whenever you do a code change and you save, it just instantly works. And it keeps the state. And then you can like do a full reload, which kind of like clears out the state, but it's just as fast almost. It's pretty amazing. And then you have like a complete package with all the icons, material UI, widgets as they're called. Instead of components, it's called widgets. You have everything. It's insanely how fast you can build this stuff, and it looks really amazing. I haven't gotten into the animation stuff yet, but it's supposed to be really smooth as well. And yeah, you have this native performance. I haven't tried to build it for Android yet, like if there are certain things that actually does differ, even though you keep isolated in the Flutter API and the Flutter world. So it will be exciting to see that. And yeah, and Google is pushing hard on this. Like, they have tons of YouTube videos, like channels for introducing widgets, and it's pretty amazing stuff. So I think they're going to get a lot of adoption. React Native has to move quite fast, I think, to kind of like, or it will be like this huge surge of people moving to Flutter. And then there will be like a surge moving back to React Native again. But yeah, it's really, really cool. Now the thing is that you don't write JavaScript at all. You write in this language called Dart. And I'm a little bit confused because people say that this is like a Java-like language, but I don't feel that at all. I think it looks much more like TypeScript. So if you come from pure JavaScript, you're going to have a tough time getting used to the language because it's typed and all this stuff. But if you write TypeScript, you're going to instantly just get into it. You won't even think about it, really. So it seems to have like, yeah, I think it's weird. Like, I don't know Java, so maybe it kind of looks like Java, but to me, it just looks a lot more like TypeScript. Okay, so the way this works is that I have my code here, and then I have my simulator. So I'm just creating some proof of concept for this startup I'm working with. Just creating a login routine. And the way this works is that we have this main function. So you create modules and you import other modules, and they actually, by default, they just expose. So when you in JavaScript create a module and you export stuff, that is kind of like globally available inside the module that imports it. So you can just use stuff directly here, or you can be explicit about what you actually want to expose. And you can say like as services, which then requires you to say services and so on. Maybe that's a good convention, I don't know. But what I'm doing here is that when the application fires up, I initialize what I call services. And then I go and grab actions, and then I initialize. So my first thing looking into this is how can I manage state and changing like the business logic or application logic and all that stuff. Because what surprised me a lot is how incredibly well-tuned they are into the experiences we have had with React. They explicitly talk about the problems of state management, where more like they call it widgets, like exactly what I've been ranting about since I started state management, or trying to solve it. Not solve it, but make it better at least. Like moving widgets around, breaking this props passing, and all this stuff. They completely get this, and they actually recommend a few different solutions. Like they have Redux, they have MobX, and a couple of other solutions. But I didn't like any of them. I think they were way too verbose, and they were not separating the application logic and the effects the way I think they should be separated. So of course I had to play around with this. So I built something on my own. And it's actually a tiny thing, and I'm going to release it. But anyways, let's just get into this. So this get it thing is an IOC, like inverse of control is the concept. It's something you have like in Java, and you have it in Angular, and I guess in C# as well. The point is that you create classes that represent something like actions, and then you can register that class to an IOC container, I think they call it, like I do inside my services here. I register the class, and actually here I'm creating registering like one instance of that class, because I don't want multiple actions. I just want one instance. So I register a singleton of the API, the app state, and the actions. And the point is that now I can just grab this from wherever. I don't have to pass this along anywhere. I can just grab it wherever I need it. That's the point of IOC. So I'm calling initialize on my actions. And this is kind of like on initialize in Overmind, where I first await grabbing the user, because I'm using Firebase here. So I'm just trying to grab the user, and then I'm pointing to my state is authenticated, where I'm adding a stream, which sounds really weird, where I'm grabbing the user stream from Firebase and I'm just mapping it to, do I have the user or not? If I have the user, I'm authenticated. If I don't have the user, I'm not authenticated. Then the user, I'm adding a stream there as well. And then I'm grabbing a user stream from Firebase. And then I'm changing the isLoading state explicitly. I'm just changing that value to false. And this might seem really, really weird. But the point is that in Flutter, you have this concept of streams. It's like in the framework, much like Angular. So typically when we work with React, we expose state to components in some form. And then we render out the logic using that state. In Flutter and also like in Angular, you bring in observables directly where you are going to use observable streams right at the point where you're going to use it. Which means that if you would have like a big component, it would need to render it would have to evaluate the whole component every time some of the state you're using changes. While with this concept, only the part that is actually using that state will update. So I'm going to show you that. But since it's so based on having these streams, a state value inside Flutter, or with my state concept here, can either be just a value that you update, like we see with isLoading here, or you can add a stream to that value. So that means that when we add the getUser stream to the user state, it means that whenever that stream sends down a new user, that will update the user state. So instead of you manually updating the state, it automatically updates from a stream coming from Firebase in this case. So that's how that works. But let's move into my app here. This is where I define the actual widget. And what we're seeing here is that we have this class called stateless widget that allows you to go and just grab the state and the actions. And then you have this build. So this is like render in React that gives you the context, which is actually the same concept as in React. It's the same type of thing, the context. And then we return a widget called material app. So everything is a widget or component. And in Dart, you have named arguments. So we're kind of like passing in 1, 2, 3 arguments here. But it can actually take a bunch of different arguments. We can see that here. You see here tons of different arguments, and you name them instead, which is really cool. It's kind of like sending in an object in JavaScript. But yeah, I'm setting a title, I'm setting the theme, and then I'm using a widget called scaffold, which is just a UI layout thing. And that's also really cool here. Like the layout is very similar to CSS, but it's more like opinionated, and the naming and all that stuff, it makes more sense, I think. This is like how you would implement layout in a programming language. Like CSS is its own thing. It's like this big declarative thing. But this is like imperatively. You call these different functions for creating layout. And it makes a ton of sense. But it's exactly like CSS in terms of you have like flexbox concepts, columns, rows, and all that good stuff. But here we can see how how we use the state we have defined. So in any widget, in any part of the app, you can say observe state, and you give it the type, and then you give it the state you want to use. Then you give it a callback, and that callback receives the state you're going to use inside the widget you return. So here we can see that if we are loading the app, we're going to show like a circular progress indicator, or we show the login widget. And then inside the login widget, here you kind of like see it becomes a little, like compared to JSX, it's a lot more verbose, that's for sure. And I really hate the default formatter, so I don't have automatic formatting, because then I just have a hard time reading the code. So I'm doing that manually. So they have a way to go there. Maybe Prettier can help them out. But anyways, again, I'm just grabbing the app state and the actions. And we are rendering out, let's see, a card here. And we put in the username, password, and login button, which I have created myself. And it's exactly the same concept. You just render out stuff. And then we have some, I think I have some, are we looking? Yeah, here we are observing some state again. If we're logging in, we kind of like disable the button and stuff like that. It's incredibly straightforward. But I had to figure out this state management first, because that was a real pain to get up and going with either Redux or MobX or those kinds of solutions. So just to summarize how this state stuff works, this is how you define it. You just create a class and you create these observable state values. And if you want to split this up in namespaces, you just do that. You create other classes that you instantiate inside AppState, for example. It doesn't matter how you structure it. And what this observable state returns is like class that allows you to update the value inside of it, which pushes that value on the stream so that the UI updates. And then you can also, as I showed, you can add a stream. So instead of adding a value, you add a stream, but you can still push values on it if you want to do that. And this is kind of interesting because streams is this really low-level generic concept, but in the context of creating state, there's so many things you don't really care about. Like, for example, this isLoading state. It will never have like errors. It will never finish. It's just a value you want to push down the stream whenever it changes. And it's the same for the other stuff here as well. So state should not be managed at the level of streams, I think, because there's so many concepts within streams that doesn't make sense for a state value. That's at least my perspective on this. Okay, should I show you something else then? API. Yeah, and I do the same thing as in Overmind. I define my effects separately. So instead of exposing like the tutorials exposes Firebase directly in the widgets. I don't think that's a good idea at all. Because what you really want is to, for example, you want a state. Let's say you have a list of to-dos. And what you want is to have, let's say, app state. You want a state that is named to-dos, for example, which is an empty array by default. And you want to sort this, not sort, but you want to limit this list. You want to show 10 or 20 to-dos or whatever. And you want, you need to grab this from Firebase. So the way you really want to handle this is that you have this state, which has initially an empty array, and then you have an action that, for example, is named change limit. And what that action does is grab a stream from Firebase, which has that limit on the query for the to-dos. And then that stream, maybe I can just code it here. This will be a long coffee, but that doesn't matter. Let's see. Let's just change limit. And then, for example, we get an int here. And what I could do here is say state to-dos, add stream, and then go to the API, get to-dos stream, for example, and then give it that limit. So what you're basically doing is that you're changing out the stream of the state. So initially, maybe it had a limit of 10, and that is a specific stream that grabs that data from Firebase. But then we call this change limit function or action, and then we change out the stream of the same state value. So now it suddenly brings down 20 to-dos instead. So that's kind of like the concept here, is that you have constant state, but you can replace them with value. You can make them expose specific values or streams, which I think is pretty cool. And like the verbosity of the code is extremely low, which I also really like. And everything's of course typed and all that stuff. So I'm going to play some more with this. I already done tons of iterations on it, so I'll release that package when I've actually built something that has a certain level of complexity. Okay, that was a lot about, well, I wanted to show you the hot reloading here. So for example, login, maybe I want to, okay, change the text username to username woohoo, save that. And then I have woohoo. It took a little bit of time now because I was in, I haven't changed it for a bit. So if I change it back, and there we go. So it's really, really smooth. And the error indications are really nice. And it's just an amazing development experience. I'm super surprised. And I'm going to play a lot more with this, that's for sure. Okay, yeah, so that's Flutter. I'm actually starting on Code Sandbox. I'm a little bit late because I had some issues with releasing the YouTube link I talked about. But now I'm going to make a video to explain to the people working on Code Sandbox what the plan is to move from Cerebral to Overmind. And I had a few iterations trying out different strategies, but I have a really good strategy now, I think. Learning from the last refactor as well. So looking forward to doing that. Again, thanks for following me on Ko-fi, and I will make another video next week. So have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later.